am Mellisa Smith.
I'm Spencer Ziegler, and welcome to Data Lit, a podcast for educators by educators. And from time to time, we like to interview someone within Wake County to learn how they collect, analyze, and use data. And we have a special treat for this episode as we get to speak with Chris McCabe, the Northern Area Superintendent. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, we're excited for this episode because as a area superintendent, your role undoubtedly touches upon many facets of the district operations. So could you start by telling us a little bit about your educational journey and share an overview of your primary responsibilities?
Oh yeah, sure, happy to. Well, it might be a little bit unique, but my whole career has been in Wake County. Wake County's been great to me. I've been in the district since 1993, so coming up on 33 years.
Wow.
I began as, like I said, back in 93 as a teacher, as an elementary school teacher. For a number of years, I taught a few different grade levels, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. Loved being a teacher. Honestly thought I'd probably be a teacher forever. But, though some little birdie whispered, maybe you want to try administration. And so I'm like, yeah, okay. I had, fortunate to get the principal fellowship so I could get my master's degree at no cost. And so, I went that route figuring worst case scenario, I was, I get a master's degree. I don't like administration. I'd just go back to teaching. I was super happy with doing that. Found out I loved being an administrator. And then, so I was a principal for 18 years in the district at a variety of different schools, traditional calendar elementary school. I opened a brand new multi-track year-round elementary school. And then I was principal for 8 years at a multi-track year-round middle school. So after that, I moved into this role, and I've been in this role just coming up on right about 6 years. So this role's afforded me kind of the unique global perspective on education, which has been super cool. The downside is I'm one step further removed from the kids in the classroom, which is always a struggle. But I've got systems and structures in place to keep me. I'm at a school right now recording today. And so most days I'm in schools, talking to principals, visiting classrooms, chatting with teachers, doing learning walks. So I keep my feet pretty grounded in the real work, the magic in the classroom, or at least I try to. And so, this role, I spent a lot of time in elementary school in my career and a good bit of time in middle school, but was never actually in a high school. And so this role offers me that glimpse. While not a teacher or a principal in a high school, it offers me in the opportunity to be in high schools, which is great. It continues to broaden my perspective and my understanding of the educational journey from 3 years old to 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So, and in this role, I supervise 23 schools plus the district's only early learning center. And so, my primary responsibilities really lie with hiring principals to lead schools. So getting the right people aligned to the right school communities at the right time with the right skills so that learning environments are flourishing for both adults and for kids. So that involves support that feels like support, coaching principals, and assistant principals, primarily principals, but I know my assistant principals really well, and evaluating principals. So, I do a lot of support in collaboration with my senior administrator, Dr. Stevens, who's awesome. And, we support the school improvement plans at schools. We do learning walks in classrooms focused on our learning model. And ultimately, our work helps to actualize our district strategic plan, right? And so we're working on moving student achievement, improving culture at schools. Aside from that, a good bit of my job where I have to engage across departments across the district. So I'm working with y'all, data research and accountability frequently, Office of Equity Affairs, certainly academics, Office of Professional Learning, special education, working with our ESL department, Title I, Magnet, you name it. I engage and collaborate with every department in this district. And so building relationships with all those folks so that I know when I know there's a need at a school, I know who to go to. Either if I don't know the answer or if I'm not the guy, because I don't know all things, right? I'm really a teacher. I'm an educator. I'm not an expert on facilities or HVAC maintenance, but I know who to go to help the schools get what they need. So lastly, I would say the other big part of my role is engaging with all of our essential partners. So, I've noted principals, assistant principals, and teachers through learning walks, but I engage with students. I engage with civic groups, community agencies, chambers of commerce, faith-based organizations in a variety of roles in my efforts to provide wraparound support for schools. So maybe a little bit of a long-winded answer, but that's who I am, where I came from, and the job as I see it right now.
No, and your answer reflects the number of years that you've been in education.
Exactly.
And the different roles that you serve. So no.
Yeah, and also just the fascinating, the role that you serve, that you are involved in all aspects of our school system, down from the small little kind of instructional things to these kind of macro data. So that's why we're really curious to hear how you collect and prioritize all these different data sets.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that can be a challenge. Looking forward to chatting about it.
So a focus of our podcast is data literacy for educators. So what does data literacy mean to you?
Well, literacy is in there, right? As an elementary teacher, like I noted, I know how to teach reading. I know how to teach literacy. And so my answer will probably be analogous to that. It is building the skills to be able to understand the purpose of the data set. That's pretty important, because when we're looking at, say, for example, formative assessment data through the lens of NC check-in data or M-class data, the purpose of that is far different than the purpose of a TWC teacher working condition survey, which is vastly different from data that we might look on work orders on the HVAC system at the school. So data sets span every aspect of the school system. Another big one would be, maybe historical student enrollment data or financial budget data. So there's lots of different data that you would use. I mean, I primarily interact with all those that I mentioned and others as well. But most of the time I'm interacting around academic data to support student achievement with kids. So it's understanding the purpose of the data set that you're looking at and how to analyze that data. And that analysis, to me, to your question on data literacy, is the crucial piece of that is when you're analyzing the data is to being able to translate it into meaning that will impact change, depending on who you're talking to. So impact change in the classroom or impact change on the building program over the next 10 years and where we need schools, to impacting change on spending patterns and decisions that a principal might make to increase efficiency in their budget. So it's really being able to translate that into meaning. It's also helpful. I have found it helpful to be able to tell a story behind the data that helps the audience connect to the data in such a way that it, shall I say, like elicits celebrations from the data as well as motivates change based around the data. So that's kind of the buckets when I look at data literacy. It's, understanding the purpose of the data set, being able to analyze it, translate it into where people can understand it so it impacts change. And then if you can have a story behind the data that humanizes it, makes it meaningful to your groups, it'd be great.
I like that, figure out the meaning, tell a story, and then impact change.
Yeah.
One of the takeaways I have from these interviews that we've done over the years is that, we've interviewed a number of different types of people, be it from positions like yours or down to like the classroom level. And no one, when we ask like, what data do you work with? No one has responded like, not that much. Like everybody feels to some degree inundated with data. And I think it's tempting and easy just to get buried by it and never go from the here's what to the so what to the now what. So I like you prioritizing, okay, we need to actually do something with it, not just stare at it like a painting at a museum and nod our head and say fascinating.
Oh, yeah. We have to definitely move beyond the being enamored by the data to action behind it. And to your last little comment there about being data rich is right, which we are. We've got
Very much so.
ton of data sources. You have to prioritize what's the most important right now that's going to have the broadest impact on change.
Right.
So, I like to say there are so many amazing, awesome things out there that we could do. You can't do every awesome thing that comes your way. You're going to have to choose strategically what are the most impactful moves to impact change. In this case, student achievement, and have to understand that I can't do everything all at once. And so you might have to set aside, at least for a time, something that seems important because you're prioritizing what you would deem strategically to be the most important areas. And that takes a skill as well, too, as far as prioritizing.
Yeah, I appreciate how you lift up that change aspect. It reminds me of one of the pillars that we have in our strategic plan about mobilizing data, right? For the longest time, we've been talking about, we look at data, but data doesn't do anything if we don't make changes. So I appreciate you lifting up we look at data to make changes, because that's where we see the improvements.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of our equity-focused practices, right? On the mobilization of data.
Yeah. And the December issue of Educational Leadership Magazine was touched on this a lot. One that the theme there was kind of doing less. So we can drop a link to that in the show notes. So so you mentioned that there's a lot of data that you work with, be it academic or HR or facilities or all that. So how do you do that? How do you strategically identify and prioritize the most crucial data points that are going to make those changes that you're speaking of?
Mm-hmm. So there are three real big buckets of data that you need to consider, right? So if in my work largely with principals and helping to actualize the strategic plan and make it come alive in their school through their school improvement plan, which should be aligned to the strategic plan, and then to the principal's professional development goals, down to the teacher's to professional development goals. When we align vertically up the system, we have a better chance of impacting change. And so when I look at those globally, the three buckets really that we need to consider is outcome data, so EOG, EOC data, M-class, NC check-ins, student attendance, discipline data around our student groups, and then perception data, our teacher working conditions survey, like student surveys, panorama family surveys, sometimes even just conversations that school leaders are having with teachers. While it's not a formal survey, that's still perception data that can inform decision-making process. And then the last bucket, outcome, perception, and then process data. Examples of that would be classroom walkthroughs or teacher evaluations. So when you're taking a holistic look at your school, you need to look at all that data to try to discern where are our opportunities to celebrate. And we absolutely need to lift that up. There are always, I have the belief, areas of celebration in the data. If you're struggling to find them, you're not looking hard enough. I have yet to work in my 33 years with a kid, a teacher, a principal, a school improvement team, a department where there weren't opportunities to celebrate in the data. And it's important to do that because we're working hard as educators, and we don't often get the rewards in our profession for the level of blood, sweat, and tears that we put in for this passionate work. So lifting up those celebrations and then identifying areas of need. So once you identify those areas of need, that will help you to then wean down what data do I need to really look at. So for example, if I'm seeing some culture issues at my school, which questions on those TWC seem to be trending down or seem to be well below the average? And then follow up with a survey on those specific areas. But you don't need to give a whole 100-question survey to everybody. Identify some of the high leverage questions where you can impact change. Or for example, looking at academic student achievement data, where are you trending as far as literacy or math or by grade level or your student groups? Are you struggling with your multilingual learners? Are you struggling with your special education learners, your AIG learners? And then that allows you to kind of wean down from all of this data and being overwhelmed with it to looking at specific data points that then you can have as measurable process checks when you put action steps in place to improve specific areas. So you need to get down to, I like to say 2, max 3 kind of goals that you want to prioritize on. Otherwise, you become overwhelmed and get lost in the sauce, and you just do surface level work and you run the risk of little change.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of reminiscent of Victoria Bernhardt's work on, that outcome perception process. I think too often it's tempting to just focus on the outcome, and we'll look at like EOGs and we'll cross-reference them with NC check-ins, and we'll cross-reference that with like STAR or M-class. But we're just saying the same thing like 6 different ways and don't get anywhere. But when you pull in the perception, understand how students or teachers feel about the curriculum, the content, and how it's being taught, and all those kind of things, and understand the process, the steps that we put in place to get those results, that's where you can get a sense of what to do differently next Monday. So I like that piece.
Yeah, very true to your point. And like an explicit example of that is if our student survey data, if our kids are indicating, I don't feel heard, or I don't feel seen, or I don't feel valued in the school. I mean, brain research indicates that not just kids, but human beings who don't feel heard, seen, and valued, their brain is not going to fire in the same way to allow learning to be maximized. And so we may be able to impact academic change through those outcome data by doing some culturally responsive teaching strategies in our classrooms to make kids feel valued, seen, and heard, and add total participation techniques and Kagan strategies in our classroom that impacts the academic outcomes. So the cross-referencing of those is crucial, and a strategy that might seem cultural can have a positive change on academic data.
Correct.
Well said.
So you mentioned this wide range of essential partners that you work with: principals, assistant principals, teachers, community members, school board reps. So what do you consider when determining what data to share with them and how to share it?
Well, you're right. I mean, the audience is the first key in deciding what data to share. I have to, because I've shared the broad range of audiences that I interact with, I mean, I do have to consider confidentiality in the data, depending if I'm with civic groups versus if I'm with a PLC in a classroom or school improvement team, right? So I got to be sure that I'm not sharing confidential data and breaking any, FERPA laws or anything like that. Yeah. So that's one thing in the back of my mind. I just want to kind of double check and make sure that everything's copacetic with that. And then I consider the purpose. Why are we talking about this data? What is the purpose? Are we trying to drive changes to classroom instruction? Am I trying to drive engagement of community partners? Am I trying to increase the number of volunteers in a school? Am I trying to engage a foundation or a civic group to raise money to help the school with a playground fundraising campaign, for example? So I consider the purpose of the data. That really drives you down to then what do I want to share? That high level kind of look then helps me to get more into the weeds as far as what data I need to share. Typically, data is best to share with clear visuals as well. I mean, I know for me personally, it's helpful to see a visual that helps bring the data alive and distill it down to some meaning as opposed to 1,000 bullet points.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned before, to kind of circle back, and then to tell a story that helps the data come alive. Sometimes it helps to humanize the data and contextualize the numbers. Stories help to contextualize the numbers for people. And ultimately, whoever I'm engaging with and sharing data with, I mean, the goal is almost always some type of change.
Right.
Whether it's a change in instructional practice or a change in how you budget money or how you drum up volunteers. I'm looking for I'm before you to share data to help something improve.
Yeah.
And so the more I can contextualize it and help it to come alive, the more you touch the heart to motivate people towards change. And then we can figure out, what does that change look like? What action steps do we need to take? But I need your heart and mind kind of with me as far as the purpose and the vision of what we're trying to do.
I imagine that in your role, we talk about a lot in our department, big A accountability and little a accountability. And sometimes when people think of data and the report, they only think of the punitive aspect of accountability. How do you help schools or principals see that data or using data can also be a learning process?
One thing I share pretty frequently is just to remind people that data is not emotional.
Ooh.
We are, right? And data can be very personal, especially for classroom teachers, right? Our work is deeply passionate. It's deeply personal. And so depending on the conversation, right? You don't want somebody who's upset about the data to then share that data is not emotional. We are. That's probably not the right time to share, right? But there are times when reminding people that our reaction to the data, it is in fact freeing because it's something we control.
Yeah.
And so there's a time and a place to share that potentially in the story with the data, but also reminding people that at least my belief is it's all about growth. And when I say growth, I don't explicitly mean evals growth data.
Yep.
It's all about growth. We're here as educators to make things a smidge better tomorrow in our classrooms than they were today for kids. Just a smidge. And a smidge every day transforms education for kids. And so it's all about growth. It's not about perfection. Of course, we want 100% kids proficient. We don't. We haven't since Abraham Lincoln. So we want to make a smidge better today. So to set small, measurable goals that whoever you're talking to feels it's attainable is critical. So when you're talking about data, you do definitely have to have open, honest, and transparent conversations. Transparency builds trust. With trust comes the ability to work with a team. Then you talk about collective efficacy, which is the highest efficacy rate of all research-based strategies, says Marzano and Hattie, which can impact change. So you collaboratively develop, I mentioned earlier, 2, maybe 3 small attainable goals directly tied to the data with clear measures of success that we feel like we have a good shot to accomplish. And I say a good shot, when we develop those goals, they should be stretch goals. When you see the goal, you should go, yes, I think if we work hard, we can get there. It shouldn't be like, oh, absolutely, we're going to be able to do that. We're not looking to set a goal that's just easily attainable that you can check the box to say we did that. We're looking for a goal that stretches us as professionals to grow and stretches us to be able to help kids grow. So I think kind of in summary, we need to find the celebrations in the data. We need to remember that it's about growth, not perfection. We need to have open, honest, and transparent conversations as we develop small, attainable goals that drives us towards growth.
I think I'm going to be using that in my future work as a unit of measure, just a smidge.
Yeah. Just a smidge. That's right. Right. A smidge over time, it's the snowball effect, right?
Yeah. I like that. I appreciate the intentionality that you're touching on. You're not just dropping giant data sets on everyone and saying kind of go nuts. You're thinking about, okay, what to share and how to share it, and what is the story, and what is the little smidge of improvement that over time can have a great impact. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So throughout this conversation, we've touched upon a lot of different ways in which managing and interpreting data can present unique challenges. What do you see as the greatest opportunity for leveraging data even further in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. Wake County is huge, right? We're one of the biggest places in the nation. The first comment I would make takes your question maybe in a slightly different direction. With size comes opportunity.
Yeah.
We've got a wealth of people that know a ton about data, right? There's a whole data research and accountability department that all know way more about data than I do, that are experts.
They're great. Yeah.
They are great. Yeah. That Spencer guy.
For good things.
Right. And I know if I need a formative assessment data expert to meet with the PLC, I can call Mellisa Smith, who really knows about formative assessment data. Right. But in all honesty, we do. And we've got an academic department that's deeply familiar with our curriculum and the assessments that go with it. So leveraging our size to bring in experts to be able to come alongside folks who might need help interpreting the data and making it actionable, or might need help moving from the overwhelmingness of all the data down to small actionable pieces. So the first thing I would say is our size can be an advantage if we leverage it and the capacity that we have and the equity within the people that we have to help grow our instructional leaders across the district. But your question also begs, how can we be better? What opportunities can we have to improve? In my opinion, we have a real clear need in our district for the development of a real-time, practical, and comprehensive data dashboard. We don't have that. I know we're working on it because I'm engaging with people that are helping to work on it. It's a slow process. It costs money, but that is a very real, urgent need for our district. We need to have a data dashboard for which all levels of users vertically across our district, right? From teachers to PLCs, to school-based administrators, to all the departments, the central service leaders, to the superintendent. Yeah. Need to be able to go into the data dashboard, and it needs to be so user-friendly that they're like, gosh, I wonder what these group of kids across second grade are doing in literacy. And I can filter down the data on the spot in a PLC meeting and have an answer to that question. And we don't have that. And so that's a real need that I think can really help us do some of the things we've talked about today and help us to equip people to be responsive real time to the needs of kids, teachers, and schools.
Yeah.
I like that approach. So, Chris, thank you so much for sharing with us how you work with data.
Yeah, this has been really insightful. And I can tell your elementary background when you talk about the need for using data to tell a story.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate being invited. It's, I mean, it might sound corny, but it's kind of fun to have a conversation around how we use data.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you. And listeners, if you want to carry that conversation forward, you can head to our website to learn more about any of these topics. It's linked in the show notes. And you can email us at datalit@wcpss.net if you have any questions or want to extend this conversation. Thank you to Green Hope High School's Lukas Brandon for the theme music. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Take care.